little bit deeper deli here. Still able to clear all this stuff, guys. I mean, we've got the AoE baked into elemental hit. It clears almost as well as lightning arrow does in general. And I don't know, here's the number, the DPS number, if that means anything to anyone. More rares. You know, even if I have to take some hits every now and then, it's fine. I have over 80% evasion. I have a 10k max fizz hit. Things barely get a chance to even hit me, and that's the only reason why I'm not... Welcome everyone, it's Snoo. I figured I should give you an update on what I've been up to, which is making builds. Not one, not two, but 4 separate builds in preparation for 3.25. I usually only do 1, maybe 2. I will be running one of these builds, of course, but I've just been having fun. Having a lot of fun in PoE, on stream, fleshing all this stuff out in front of the viewers. Got the builds ready to go, basically, now. And all 4 of them have a character with the gear that's recommended in the build guide. I've been doing performance tests with them, if you will, with Tier 16, Delirium, Tier 17, Delirium and no Delirium, and they've all been performing fairly well. But I'm going to introduce you all 4 of these builds here in succession, not in one video, but we're just going to focus one at a time. There are varying different strengths and weaknesses in each build. Some of them are a little more convoluted with a lot of moving parts. The first one, I think, is the best build of them all, mainly because it's the simplest one, the most straightforward, and the only time I've been able to say up to this point that I would actually recommend this build for brand new players, brand new bow players especially. A lot of times you get a little bit of trouble of new players trying to try my builds. A poison tornado shot's example, something maybe there's a couple of items that are really hard to obtain, or there's something about the build that's kind of hard to pull off, the timing or whatever, and really only good for veteran players of the archetype. Not this time. I can finally say I made a build for new players, and it feels good to be able to say that. And this is no joke. This is just a very strong, straightforward archetype. It's a Deadeye. It's elemental hit of the spectrum, which is arguably the single strongest gem now, as it's basically replaced lightning arrow in terms of hit-based elemental damage on really early gear, badly rolled bow especially. And this is a freeze variant of it. So my little personal signature on the build is that it's a freeze variant of that. And this is something that I explored last league. I didn't prepare for it. I just figured I would try a few of these really interesting leveling uniques. And they were so profoundly strong. I made a separate video on it that I decided, well, I'm going to make another build on them. I'm going to make a formal build using these uniques, because I can't believe how good these are. And I know that if a new player started the game in trade and got their hands on some of these leveling uniques, that they would have a really good experience with a conventional lightning arrow Deadeye, with a slight change in the skill gem and a slight change in some of the leveling uniques. So here's the full build. It's fully fleshed out with the leveling tree, skills, items. I'm going to give you a map showcase at the end, because this is actually just a teaser. This is not the real guide. This is just a teaser. It's early. 3.25 is not here yet. Not even close, actually. So give you plenty of time to try it out yourself if you want. Let's get started here. I'm just going to go straight off. It's going to be kind of fast. Not the formal guides. I'm not going to be going over everything. I'll probably miss a few things. But we got the conventional setup here with the Deadeye. There will be return projectiles, so we're going to be focusing on far shot over ricochet. Usually it's either far shot or ricochet here. And yeah, with lightning arrow these days, most people go with the returning projectile support and go for far shot anyway. So that will be the setup here. This just looks like stereotypical Deadeye. Elemental hit based Deadeye. The only thing that's weird about it is 2 things. One, it's still precise technique, which is how you level this build normally. But eventually, by this point, level 92, you would have already swapped out to a crit-based variant with notables like Lethality, Heartseeker, and King of the Hill, maybe a couple of other things. But not in this case. And it's one of the main reasons is because something else that makes the build work is Painseeker gloves. These are probably the most peculiar unique involved in the build. Extremely common. You'll most likely be able to give whatever corruption you want on this. Obviously won't be flat crit. But the bottom line, inflict non-damaging ailments as though dealing 196% more damage. For those of you who know Expedition's End, this is double that, okay? So this is double that for chill, freeze, and shock, as well as scorch, brittle, and sap if you had it, but we don't have that. No jewels involved except for a couple of very, very basic jewels here for blind. Could have corrupted blood immunity. I didn't even go so far as to do that. though. No cluster jewels to speak of. This is set up for, this is kind of a snapshot for very early on. Not even level 20 gem, not quality gems, not quality flask. So really early, again, super new player friendly. In fact, maybe it's almost veteran unfriendly because I didn't set up like mirror tier gear at the end in the building. But I'm going to leave it really simple on this one. All right, guys, so that is kind of the crux of the build. We got Precise Technique, Pain Seeker for super strong ailment threshold. Freeze is the main focus, and this one notable wheel here is the one that's sort of out of place, the one that you would normally never see on this setup, and that is because of the mastery most of all. Enemies permanently take 5% increased damage for each second they've ever been frozen to you by a maximum of 50%. I remind you that yes, bosses can be frozen, even though they can't be stopped. They can still register as a freeze, so this would impact them. Fangs of the Frost, you know, they'll get a little bit of damage. Again, we're split 3 ways: cold, fire, and lightning, with an emphasis on cold. So it is nice that we're doing cold, but it's not really about the notable, it's about the mastery on this. That's global damage taken. That's not just cold damage taken, by the way. So that is kind of the setup. Again, mostly focusing on life. Got the suppress going on. We got the increased tax, leech. We got the 250% aura, 25% herald setup for almost no price at all with just charisma and the mana mastery. We got onslaught here. So a lot of the extra things we could do with a point that we didn't put in for crit. We got the elemental res reverse thing. We got extra accuracy and damage here. So I honestly really like the Precise Technique delaying the point where you switch to crit. There really isn't a point to switching to crit too soon. I think most players do it too soon. And in effect, it keeps things simple. The only thing you have to worry about is make sure the accuracy is higher than life, which as you can see, it very much is in this case. So yeah, that's basically the path of building there. For the skill gems, not even setting up a 6-link. Level 19 gems. No quality except for Element of the Spectrum because it actually does give quite a bit of power. On the quality, you would be doing lab 4 times over. You'd probably be able to quality up 1 gem anyway. But this would be the best 5-link. Inspiration you might think wouldn't be good because we're not doing crit, but it is nice to lower the mana cost. With that setup, with the reservation setup, we have 82 mana max, so not mana cost 17. We are attacking fast. We do get leech and mana on hit, but it's still a good idea to have inspiration here because if I mean, just removing it, and if I put a stiff 5-link in there, the mana cost is going to go up to like 27 or something per attack. Return projectiles is here, and then Trinity, of course, this is the no-brainer. We're going to be easily separating the damage. You don't even have to think about it. Nothing tricky here. The most powerful elemental hit-based support gem, if you're doing more than 1 element damage, is Trinity, so that is in there, of course. For the next 5-link, will be Artillery Ballista. I can't get away from using this, especially when one of the weaknesses of the build is single target. You can see the damage down here. Artillery Ballista times 24, which would be all 4 ballistas, all attacks hitting at once, optimal conditions. But you can see it actually does more damage than Elemental of the Spectrum. Now in practice, maybe it doesn't, but it's certainly doing about the same, if not more. And so this is really important to have when you're at the weaker phase of the build and you're not automatically doing a ton of damage to begin with. This helps carry some of the single targets, allow you to unlock maybe the Watchstones, allows you to kill beyond bosses, map bosses a little more easily in tier 16. It will not go so far as to enable you to do tier 17 bosses, however, we'll say. The build is not quite made to do that. And I would think a build with this cheap, this lower budget, with this snapshot in time, probably shouldn't be able to do those things anyway. Frenzy, Mana Forge Arrows, and Power Charge on Crit is the typical 3-link you see here. However, we get an extra gem link because we're not using power charges. In this case, Culling Strike and Innervate together. And I have extra gem links there. I don't even need to put the Flame Dash here or whatever. So a really, really good 4-link here. It's a little bit unconventional. Innervate and Culling Strike together. Again, early in the gearing process, Innervate's really strong on a pure elemental build. Culling Strike, of course, is strong if you can get it somewhere in the build. And these two synergize off each other. It allows Innervate buff to have much higher uptime. So really good there. Next up, we got the boots. Again, this is a 250% aura, 25% herald. Herald of Ice, of course, I want to use because it frees everything. So it's going to be really strong. And then Purity of Elements, well, in the earlier gearing process, new player friendly, best aura there is. Because we don't have to worry about elemental ailments, and then we get the resistances covered more easily. I don't like using Purity of Elements for long, but at this stage in the build, absolutely should be used there. Anger would be the more conventional next best choice, but Not that great for elemental hit of the spectrum. It's already giving you a lot of flat damage. Grace, of course, we're going to go for grace-based build. The typical Deadeye defensive layer is evasion, and with Wind Dancer up, it's almost 90% with Wind Dancer up. Yeah, Wind Dancer doing that. So we got the Flame Dash here instead of in the Frenzy Link side. Now, most of these builds have a guard skill, either automation with Steel Skin or casting damage taken a Mortal Call. I decided to opt out of that. We don't have the greatest reliance on endurance charges, but it's nice to get some endurance charges into the build. And of course, we want Sniper's Mark somewhere. We can't do cast on crit Sniper's Mark, naturally, and we wouldn't want to because we need the single target damage here. Again, early league, this is going to be really optimal setup. And this is a setup, guys. I mean, by the time you end, this is a setup before Act 10. If you can manage it, this is a setup before Act 10. I mean, maybe you wouldn't have 5 links, but 4 links here. That's what my plan is. We'll ride it all the way through. It's going to be so simple and easy. Going from tier 1 to 16, not going to change anything, really, on the gem links. So it'll be very smooth sailing all the way through. And, of course, the extra things that we can do with the passives is just going to make this really, really easy. All right, just to remind you, Elemental Hit of the Spectrum, look at that flat damage roll. Now, I've told you this carries the gem. Now, the base damage conversion is less than Lightning Arrow, and we're going to be shocking a little bit less, although with Painseeker, actually, we're shocking about this almost as much anyway. I just want you to see what's here. 48% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite completely carries precise technique, where we can't normally get a really high chance. So we already have almost 100% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite anyway. So it's the perfect gem to use in the beginning. You get the flat element carrying there, and we are getting the freeze, shock, chill, and ignite. So the more damage per elemental ailment is going to have 4 times that up all times, basically. Really, really good there. And again, see the numbers there? Let's check the gear here. I have a quiver that is tier 2, 3, and 4. And notice the damage, or the damage, flat damage numbers are less. Actually less on this bow. This is how crazy strong that gem is by itself. I leveled this with a Quill Rain, and it was good. And that's actually going to make a separate video on that. I can't believe Quill Rain attack-based elemental build worked, leveling through campaign all the way up to 216. That's how insane all this extra flat damage here is at level 19. So the bow, it doesn't even matter, but this is just kind of the projected bow you might get with, Shrieking Essences of Hatred, probably to start there, and a Fracture with accuracy if you can. It's nice. It'll probably be the most convenient, cheap Fracture to get. Not even that necessary, though, as we're well over accuracy, over life anyway. Now, we get into some interesting uniques here that are really good for the early game. I plan to buy these before finishing the campaign. Most of the uniques on this list I'll probably have before finishing the campaign, or well, at least half of them, I guess. This quiver is one of them. It's like a 2 chaos quiver, something like that. And it gives you a whole bunch of extra damage. Remember how we had this here? Up to 50% increased damage taken, global. Similar phenomenon here with chill. And obviously I'm going to get max chill, because if I have chill enemies, though, dealing 95% more damage on top of Painseeker's line, hello, everything's going to be max chill at all times. And frozen really, really conveniently. Heat Shiver is a natural addition here too. Now, post-nerf, it's not as popular, not as expensive. Still a 15 to 30 chaos item, maybe a little bit more at a certain point at league start, but wow, I mean, look, that's just going to give so much extra damage. If I take this off, my damage tanks pretty hard. So a really sensible option here. Maybe a little bit odd since we're not a pure cold build, but focusing more on cold damage. A lot of our damage is cold, so it works out pretty nice. Next up, we got Lightning Coil, which, again, trying to make it new player friendly, early gearing. It's nice to get defensive layers when you can. It's just a very sensible chest to get if you can get the lightning res in there. For some reason, this is common enough that it remains cheap, even though it's crazy strong with a fizz taken as lightning. I did put a topaz flask in here deliberately for this reason. And, well, there you go. I mean, pretty self-explanatory. League start build, love to have this chest if they can. It's still only about 5 to 10 chaos early league. 5 link to be a little more, but, you'd have to work on that. Painseeker I already talked about why it's strong. It's got a bunch of flat elemental damage too. It just fits perfectly within the theme of the build. As far as uniques, the Halcyon is an amulet that I've never used before personally, but wow, I mean, look how good this is for freeze. Winter's Embrace is the strongest freeze duration Anoint on there, very cheap, by the way. And this has, I think, a total of 90% increased freeze duration, which compounds with things like Pain Seeker to really give you, land those freezes, even against rares, even in tier 16. Everything except high health rares, bosses, maybe, are all going to be frozen. It's really something to come up against a rare and just actually permafreeze all the normal monsters, all the magic monsters throughout the entire map, delirium or not, and then even rares get permafrozen. Not all of them, but many of them do. So this amulet also prolifts the freeze, which helps with that too in maps. The taming, extremely strong, probably the most expensive, definitely the most expensive unique on the list. 30 to 60 chaos here. The Halcyon, I can't remember, it's like 15 to 30 chaos. Something like that. I checked the prices on PoE Ninja, but you know, they're subject to changing a little bit. The taming is just really strong. We're going to be freezing, shocking, igniting. We're going to get the full value out of this. It has no rolls for crit on there. We get a lot of elemental res covered. There's no catalyst on here, which could be, but this would be a great double taming setup. However, I figured it would just make it easier on the gearing process. We're only going to do one, and we can cover our bases with some other things with, you know, whatever resistance attributes. Minus mana cost is nice to have, not even mandatory. But you can see this ring is basically just covering resistances for the most part. And then the belt is also just covering kind of some resistances. Very easy to craft these. I mean, just starting with essences, you know, relatively cheap fractures. You may not be able to get rolls these high. You may not even have to do fractured items. But they're just crafted with essence. It's pretty easy. I'm not going to go into detail about that too much. Non-qualitied, non-enchanted flasks with unoptimized base suffix combinations that all kind of work together here. We got movement speed, we're stun immune, I believe, and then we got evasion and attack speed somewhere on all 4 flasks. And then I left the life flask, because again, new player friendly, they don't want to give up the life flask very much. I will probably not be running a life flask, but before you have corrupted blood immunity, you should, and we're not running steel skin, so it kind of makes sense to go ahead and stick with the life flask. You know, I could have put a taste of hate or whatever in there, but no, I'm keeping it simple, keeping it as cheap as possible. So this is a very cheap setup. We've got a couple of jewels here that, I mean, almost doesn't even matter what these jewels are. I want to get blind on the hit somewhere, but that's about it. Could do phasing, but hey, I had extra points to spare. It's already got phasing out of the way. All right, so there it is. We got the configuration is set up for, I suppose, an optimal boss encounter. This is not very realistic DPS on a boss at all times. You know, this is just optimized damage. It does not feel like we're doing this much boss damage. But anyway, that is how things come up. Of course, we have additional buffs that are up in combat. Some of these, all these different buffs and numbers do go up. When you're talking about in maps, it'll come up a lot better than that. Trinity is max there. Our Kali Abarath, we don't need Brine King, which is nice. And yeah, all that should look pretty good. Pretty good. 10 seconds of freeze, again, pretty optimal. All right, next up's the calculations. So, I mean, not a whole lot to see here. It's not a Magic Find build, very simple there. The freeze duration is really, really strong. As you can see, stun avoidance, we got it completely covered there. Can't always do that with the Deadeye build. Mana cost is here. There's no crit involved. There's AoE going on. Let's see where the AoE mod is. Can't remember where that one is. I don't know. You'll have to check it out on your own. I'm missing where it's at right now. But yeah, chance to freeze is 88%. This is a very important number here. Chance to freeze. Wow. And chance to chill is 100%. Chance to shock is also pretty high. So we're going to have very reliable elemental ailments there. Really happy about how this landed. Now, next up, I got to show you a map showcase. So that is coming next. All right, so here we are in game, and I'm showcasing this atlas. Now, this is an item level 84 plus cluster farm that I'm really excited to test in the beginning. And one of my goals next league, with whatever build I choose, is to try and race to this point, hopefully kill T17 bosses, but definitely want to be able to clear some of T17 to get those cluster jewel rewards in Delirious maps. And that is the atlas that I have here, just so you're aware what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go ahead and run one tier 16, so you can see it in tier 16, and then also tier 17. It'll be a nice way to showcase some harder, somewhat juiced up content with Beyond Delirium, and a little bit of Nico to help along the way. But I can kind of show you a little bit of non-delirium gameplay as well as delirium gameplay to get the full spectrum of mapping difficulties. This is set up with these kind of scarabs. I made a whole 100 maps video on this farm. It's not really designed for tier 16s, but for the sake of a showcase, here we go. I'm at the mercy of whatever these look like. It's actually very easy, I think, for this one. But anyway, yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is the build. All the pieces are here. Again, 5 links, level 19 gems, no cluster jewels in the build. Very restricted early game snapshot. I would, hope to have this kind of gear around the time when I reach level or tier 16 and have farmed there a little bit. I guess I forgot to check or test without delirium, but anyway, that's all right. It's just a tier 16, so yeah, here we go. Exarch altar farming is also a little bit of this as well. So you can see the freezes. Look at the freezes. Rares being frozen, even in Delirious. Rares permanently frozen. Guys, I can tell you how extremely potent that is. A defensive layer that gets overlooked by so many players. Perhaps the strongest defensive layer in maps is actually freeze. Can still take a few hits and not die, which is good. So you notice the damage is not crazy, but definitely able to kill enemies. Let's see. Looking at the map mods, I don't think there's any real downside to the map mods here. This build should excel at Breach, probably not in Delirious Breach T16s, but anyway, you can kind of see what this looks like. I think it's going to be terrific for certain mechanics like, oh my god, Beyond, especially Blight, anything there's a bunch of normal or magic mobs tied up together in short succession. Of course, Strongbox will be really good. Legion will be halfway good, probably not in Delirium, although that equation will change once Inspired Learnings are brought into the build at a later time. So yeah, damage is, can be a little bit of an issue, but this, I mean, it can be dangerous for a content creator to put a number on it, but I suspect this is under 5 divine budget. It certainly would have been at League Start if nobody promoted the build, because, I mean, the prices were obvious. Even on day 1 or day 2, this was under 5 divines for this setup, this past league. Now, if this build gains a lot of attraction, who knows what that would be. But virtually everything in here has very common drops as far as uniques are concerned. The rares are not terribly hard to make. Again, not even 6-link gear. So many restrictions I put on myself here. And I will go ahead and attempt to do a T16 Delirious boss. Yeah, not even leveling these gems. This is the back end Delirium at a Jungle Valley, so things are much tankier than normal here. But normal monsters, completely frozen. They don't have a chance. This is why it's going to be an unbelievably strong build against Beyond in particular. Normally, Beyond spawns and you have to contend with it. You're forced to take a whole bunch of hits. It can be really dangerous. I'm probably going to die here because I got a ghosted Deli boss. But I don't know. I'll fight it out. We'll see what happens. This boss is actually pretty dangerous. I don't really know what that particular ghosted mod does. Fast attacks, spreading out everything. We got return projectiles going everywhere. Not dead yet. Okay, there we go. Figured it was inevitable. All right, so that's probably a decent showcase there. Now, you can probably imagine just from seeing that a tier 17 map boss is definitely not going to go well. And I've not even been able to kill one with or without Delirium. I think it might be possible to do it without Delirium. But anyway, this is Abomination. This is the actual strat that I want to do. And by all measurements, it should not be possible for me to do this strat with this little investment. That's just a testament to the build. Well, maybe I could go in and kill a few monsters and get a few rounds of Delirium. But to be able to, relatively easily go through this map without too much trouble. I think the mods are also very easy on here. We got the elemental resistance, but I do have the flip mastery here, so should be good. I'm going to first show you this without Delirium so you can get a sense of tier 17 no Deli. There's a rare that's already dead, not stealing any headhunter buffs, unfortunately. But even in temp bubble, you know, this guy's not quite frozen. Just died there. Okay, but yeah, permanently freezing normal monsters. And again, you don't normally see this. Even on a crit-based version of this build, you wouldn't have freeze going out this well. Well, I took that to the face, didn't die somehow. Permanently frozen rare there. Some of that might have been the freeze prolift from the amulet, but magic monsters permanently frozen, and even I'm permanently frozen apparently. I don't know how, but oh yeah, petrified. Sorry, that was Petra. All right, we got the detonate dead spider here. Very dangerous mob. Nope, not in this case. When it's permanently frozen and everything's shattered, obviously it's no problem. So hey, how about that? Major bonus points there. Oh yeah, we get the sulfite veins, and okay, so there you go. That is non-delirious. Not so bad, eh? Now let me show you delirious. Of course, I would normally do this map in delirious. Again, early on, I'm giving you guys a sneak peek at how I intend to make a whole bunch of currency. It'll be this right here. Okay, we get the cluster rewards will be coming each round. Those are all item level 84 plus clusters, guys. You know, some of these are gonna be worth multiple divines. Especially the reservation small cluster. That thing's going to be crazy valuable in the first few days of the leagues with the Orobots setting up for the group place. Maybe conventionally some item level 84 clusters aren't that valuable. But hey, you know, I'm going into a little bit deeper deli here. Still able to clear all this stuff, guys. I mean, we've got the AoE baked into elemental hit. It clears almost as well as lightning arrow does in general. And I don't know, here's the number, the DPS number, if that means anything to anyone. More rares. You know, even if I have to take some hits every now and then, it's fine. I have over 80% evasion. I have a 10k max fizz hit. Things barely get a chance to even hit me, and that's the only reason why I'm not dead yet. Is because things don't get a chance to hit me. I got another character I'll show later that has twice the it has more evasion, twice the max fizz hit, and will die more often than this because it's delayed damage. I'm not freezing enemies, so I can't speak highly enough about front-loading instant freezing damage on enemies. And I don't know, maybe that's a good cluster right there. 8 passives holding a shield. Okay. All right, just for fun, even though I know this is not going to go very well at all, I'm going to show you this here. Just so, you know, just trying to educate you guys on what the build is capable of doing. I think I forgot to hit my flasks there, like, forever. We're going to do this? Okay. All right, and you know these bosses, there's no way in Delirium, I'm not killing them. You know what's weird though? There's so much recovery on life on hit and leech. They can actually survive a while. And these bosses are frozen. Oops. Okay, yeah, that's a that's a one hitter. All right, well that's it. Okay, that's it for the showcase. The video is however much length it is. There you go. It's all there. I love the power of this build, especially for how cheap this is. I mean, you guys tell me, do you agree or disagree? This is some really cheap gear, guys. It's like, we're not even qualitying up the gems or the flasks. We got no cluster jewels. We got no grand spectrum jewels. We got nothing going on here that's particularly expensive. Not even level 95, which is what I normally make a build for. It's level 98. All right, and we're still able to do tier 17s. In People Last League, I don't know if you remember, I didn't even touch tier 17 until I invested 100 or 200 divines into my build. Granted, we couldn't chaos some of the maps, and it was an easy map, but I mean, that's just ridiculous. The idea that a 5 div budget build might even be able to do what it just did there. But yeah, it just happened, and they had lantern mods. I can't remember what the lantern mods were, but there it is. That's a showcase. If that doesn't showcase you a lot of power of mapping potential for this build, I don't know what does. But look forward to more builds later. They all have different strengths and weaknesses. The strength of this build is the freeze and the lack of necessity for good gear, especially a well-crafted bow. And, you know, once you're talking about the 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 DPS elemental bow, then you can maybe think about swapping out of an elemental hit of the spectrum. But until then, precise technique, not even critty. I love it. It's a fun build. Hope you guys like it too. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and look forward to the next build coming out probably in the next video.